Hey guys, I'm back again and I have for you today my top 10 reads for 2015 along with 2 honorable mentions. Now, before I get started, I'm just going to give you a quick little wrap up of how it went in 2015. It was fantastic. I read, I think it's 61 books when I had originally said I would read 50, so that's pretty good. And I read over 15,000 pages. I'll put the number here. I can't remember exactly how many. And I think my average book was something like 247 pages. So I need to improve on that. That's why the page count isn't like closer to 18,000 or something. It's because probably the books that I picked weren't long enough. But I have the intention of reading more big books this year. So I'm in the big book challenge again. And for the big book challenge, you have to read books that are 400 pages and over. And I'm going to try to read 10. So I'm going to make a better effort. I'm going to try to make sure that there's one per month. And then that way, you know, it'll be good. But it worked. Concentrating on pages is much more effective for me and my reading than counting books. Now, I do have to work on another thing is I'm just going to start DNFing books that are not floating my boat. I could have DNF'd Fates and Furies. God, I wish I had, because it took me a month to read that freaking book. No, not for me. No, ma'am. It put me into a real reading funk, and my December probably could have been richer if I didn't have to finish off the last 150 pages of Fates and Furies, which kind of like made everything drag. So I wound up reading the last 4 books of the year, like around Christmas, because I was off work and I had time to read. But anyway, be that as it may, let's get started with the wrap up of 2015 of my best books. So first, we're going to start with the honorable mentions. So I put Hollinghurst, the Swimming Pool Library, on my honorable mention list. And I don't think I did a review on this one because I was a little busy at the time. It's a book about a gay rich guy who basically can just spend his days doing whatever the heck he wants to do. He's pretty snarky and he has this thing for young black guys. Now, the thing that amazed me about this book was the quality of the writing. It is fantastic. A writing style that is just catchy, but it's intelligent, and it keeps you looking for more. Learned a lot about gay men in this book, and yeah, it was just really interesting, and I like the structure and the way the book was put together. So if you haven't read any Hollinghurst, definitely pick it up. I will be picking up another one. I think it's The Stranger's Child. I'm going to be buddy reading it again with Troi Towel. I'll keep you posted on that one. Next on my honorable mention list is Blackwater Rising. Absolutely love this book. This is a sort of a detective novel, or I should say mystery novel. And the thing about this is it has a literary style. So this is not David Baldacci or something like that. It's deep. It's deeper than what you expect. The storyline is structured in a little bit of a complex way. It kind of like drags you along for the ride, but you're not really sure where you're going or where it's going. But it is so brilliantly done. I do encourage you to check it out. Now, there is the second part of the novel, which is called Pleasantville, and I'm looking forward to picking this one up this year, which continues from the same character in this one. His name is Jay Porter, I think it is. So I'm kind of thrilled to get to the second part because I really enjoyed this. Now, it was written by Attica Locke, and if you guys are watching Empire, she is one of the writers on Empire. So check Empire out if you're not watching it. I love that show. But anyway, whatever. Now, I'm starting with the 10th book on my list, which is this one. It's called Bullsh Wah Blues. It doesn't have a dust jacket. I bought this one in Paris at some kind of a cheap book sale, and it is written by Jake Lamar. I don't know if you know Jake Lamar, but he is an African-American writer who lives in Paris. He is a graduate of Harvard and was also an editor at Time Magazine. And this is basically his memoir, and it is extremely interesting. because I read this like a few months after I had read Between the World and Me, and I saw some of the similarities and some of the things that he was talking about his life, his relationship, which was very strained with his father, the difficulty between his father and his mother, and then breaking up. It's just amazing, and how he gets through Harvard, but then, you know, how he has to maneuver the race lines and what people are expecting him to do and how they're expecting him to behave through Harvard, but also through working at Time Magazine. It's very interesting. It's a short read, but I think it's interesting and worth picking up. I hope to be picking up one of his novels this year, because I have not as yet had the pleasure of reading any of Jake Lamar's books, but when I read it, you'll know, I'll tell you. Number 9 on my list is Citizen. Now, this book, I think it went a little bit around BookTube. Very worthwhile reading, because this book mixes lyrical writing and pictures, and it discusses race with an intensity that, frankly speaking, I think is merited, and she has some very interesting things to say. I am looking forward to anything else that Claudia Rankine decides to put out, because this I thought was brilliant. Next on my list is Daughter by Asha Benderly, and this also was another book. This was the discovery for me, Asha Benderly, because I'd heard no one speak about her before. I didn't know her, and I thought that this was an excellent read about the relationship between a mother and daughter, and how somebody can change over time from the circumstances of life. Fantastic. It's very emotional, very sensitive, and very cleverly written. You will not be able to put this one down. It's a pretty fast read, but it's a pretty pertinent read. Next on my list is Some Sing, Some Cry, which you all know that I did a month-long read-along of Some Sing, Some Cry, along with Steven over at Steven Reads, and we had a good time reading this one. I'm so glad that Steven decided to suggest that we read this together, because it was a very interesting read. Now, this one follows 9 generations of the same family from slavery all the way to, like, I think the 80s. And the thing about this book that is so interesting is that while it's following this family through time, it's also following music as well. Now, the thing I thought was interesting is that there are a lot of famous dancers and singers that are mentioned in this book as characters, but that were real people that people probably didn't know about. And I thought that was clever. And the accuracy in which the book follows historical events through this family is just phenomenal. And they did it in very few pages, actually, when you think about it, because it's just like 565 pages or something. But what's really interesting is that it was tandem writing, because it was Ntosoke Shange writing with her sister Ifa Bayeza, and brilliant. If you haven't picked it up, I say pick it up. It's very worthwhile to read. Next is Lighthead by Terrance Hayes. I did a review on this one. I will link it below. Terrance Hayes. I'm sure you remember this review. I was talking about the good-looking brother who writes the poetry. This is the one. If you haven't read this one, you need to pick this up. If you don't like poetry, you're not sure about what to pick up, because you don't know if it's, if you go on to stand or not, right here, pick this up. His poetry is it's very contemporary, and it's very different from what you're probably thinking of when you think of poetry. He says a lot in his poems, and you can even check him out online reading his poems. Fantastic. If you haven't picked this one up, pick it up. I think this is what my favorite so far. I've only read 2, I read the other one, which is How to Be Drawn. I really like that one, but I like this one a lot better. Okay, next on my list, I have Water Street. Let's see if we can see it. By Crystal Wilkinson. And let's see if I can show you a little bit again. This is a short story collection that covers a black community in a small Kentucky town, and fantastic read because Crystal Wilkinson writes her short stories. They almost sound like, in some cases they sound like poems or something, or like you're looking into the window of a particular community or a particular character. And the thing that's really cool about this is that they're all linked, they're intertwined. So as you discover one character, you discover another one, and then you see them later on in the book in another situation. It's really good. I mean, if you haven't read that, you need to read it, and especially if you're afraid of short stories. This one got me out of my short story rut, along with a couple of other ones that I read last year. But yeah, that one you need to definitely check out. Next on my list, I have Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. I'm not going to say that much about this because you already know about it. It's been all over everywhere online. Blogs, video, vlogs, you know, YouTube, Booktube, everything. So this is fantastic. This is a read that you cannot not have read this book. If you haven't picked it up, I encourage you to pick it up. It is phenomenal, and it is informative. And also it is a quick read, and there's no reason why you shouldn't want to pick this one up. It's The Business. Pick it up. Next on my list is The Memory of Love by Aminata Forna. Now, this also is an author that I did not know anything about. This book was a book club choice. A book club read this. I think we read it at, I want to say at the beginning of the year. I'm not really sure. I can't remember exactly. But this covers 3 main characters that are male, and they are in Sierra Leone. So one is a young man who is from Sierra Leone, who is a brilliant surgeon. Another one is a white man who is from the UK. I think he's English. And he is working in Sierra Leone as like a psychologist or something. And he's basically trying to treat people who have suffered psychologically from the past war that had taken place in Sierra Leone. And then you have a third man who is from Sierra Leone who is older now, and he is like a dean of one of the university colleges or something. Now, what you do is you're introduced to these 3 characters and you follow them, and out develops this sort of love story, flashback from the war and some other things. And it is just extraordinary. It is beautifully written. The writing style, it blew me away. It's so beautifully written. And Aminata Forna is from there, but I think she grew up part of her life in the UK because her father was arrested, and I think he was actually killed after. So she is between Sierra Leone and the UK. So her perspective on Sierra Leone and its troubles is interesting, the way she paints it through this particular book. Second on my list is The Warmth of Other Suns. And I know you all know this book because it has been all over BookTube. And yes, it is a chunker, but it is worthwhile reading. I tell you, it's only 543 pages, so it's quite doable. Yes, it is a big book, but let me tell you, this nonfiction book will keep you hooked better than any fiction book you can pick up. And not only that, you will be learning a lot of things about the Black migration. And you know, we haven't heard a lot about the Black migration in, you know, historically at school and things like that. But if you're interested in learning more about it, you need to pick this one up because it follows closely 3 characters, 2 men and a lady, and you follow them from the southern states, one out to California and one to 2 of the northern states. And along with it, she puts in there, Isabel Wilkerson manages to put in all of these little historical details of different people, different events, and things that have affected Black people through this entire period. And it's phenomenal, this book. I mean, I don't think she was maybe praised enough in my book for it, because I think it is really a fantastic read and everybody should read it. It's a must read. Now, my favorite book of the year, you probably already know what it is. It is A Brief History of 7 Killings. This is the beautiful Man Booker winner edition. It looks like an album. It feels really good. This book, OMG. If you haven't read this book, you need to get on it. It's true. The thread of the book is the assassination of Bob Marley brings out a storyline other. It is not the principal, but it brings out an other storyline, and with it brings a lot of, yes, there's a lot of cursing, there's a lot of violence. The structure is gonna put you off guard, but you know what? All that is fantastic, because we need a little bit of something that is different than what we're used to reading. And this is absolutely brilliant. So brilliant that I am actually rereading the book now. I'm rereading it a bit slower, and I'm doing it with an audiobook to see if I can get through some of the patois that was in there and understand maybe a bit more. So as you can see, I'm just like a third through or something. So when I finally get through reading this one a second time, I'm going to be doing a written review over on my blog. I'll let you know when it's done. But you know what? You need to just do it. Pick it up, read it, get it from your local library if you don't want to buy it. But I think it's worth reading because it is something that's very different. And Marlon James, he really deserved that Man Booker. That's all I got to say. So that is all I have for you today concerning my top 10 of the year. Normally I would just move on to 2016, you know, like usual. But if you're interested in seeing my December wrap up, let me know, drop me a line below. If, you know, enough people say they want to look at it, then okay, fine, I'll do the wrap up. No problem. Okay, I do have one other little thing, is I will be giving away this book right here, which is A Brief History of 7 Killings, since I love it so much. This was the book I read first, so it's hardly touched, it's just read. You know, I wasn't abusive with it, so I'm going to give it away because I prefer my brand new spanking hardcover copy, and I want one of my lovely subscribers out there to profit and actually get a chance to read this book. All you have to do is drop a line below and tell me what your favorite book by a Black author was in 2015, and be a subscriber, and you might get to win this book and a couple of other little things. I might throw in a little extras as well along with the book, but in general this is the main thing that you're going to be getting, and it's practically new. Okay, so that's to thank you all for subscribing, for supporting me through all of my ups and downs of blogging. I seriously want to thank you all. The support has been fantastic. I hope that I'll be able to keep you all interested this year, and that you will just keep on hanging in there with me. And yeah, I'll be back real soon with a review. Bye.